Okay. Yeah.
The only things that
I was checking that.
Stop for a second. Let me finish. The only thing that's active out there are 2 U.S. flagged pleasure craft. Wonder what that is.
Yeah.
Before
Larry, before going to the Strait of Hormuz, today it was somehow different because of the announcement that in the United States, they said that Lindsey Graham passed away. It seems that it was because of some sort of heart attack. It said it's an immediate and sudden disease. What was that? I know that you wrote a piece on your Substack.
Yeah, well, he did not die in Washington, D.C. Let's be clear about that. If he suffered a heart attack, the heart attack was suffered in Kyiv. So, let me walk you through the timeline. When Lindsey Graham arrived in Kyiv Friday morning between 10:30 and 11 a.m. on a train. That's the normal way that members of Congress and Joe Biden, president, and other European leaders, that's how they travel. You remember that train trip with Macron and Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
Was it Merz?
There was something going on there.
Yeah, they were riding that train high on cocaine, to quote the Grateful Dead. But so they go in on the train. The train gets in between 10:30 and 11 a.m. on Friday. He then goes and he has meetings with Zelensky, and he gets to tour a drone factory that was destroyed sometime late Friday afternoon, Friday evening by Russia. Now, we don't know if Lindsey Graham was in that factory or had left that factory. We don't know what happened that evening, but if he decided he needed to quickly return to the United States the normal way, because it's either return the normal way or go out on a medical evacuation flight. There are flights that medically evacuate personnel that have been wounded or killed in Ukraine. And, we've seen a number of them will fly to a military hospital in Poland. So the train that he would have taken would have left Saturday morning about 7:45 to 8 o'clock a.m. That is 1 a.m. Washington, D.C. time. So now let's just stick with Washington, D.C. time. That train ride takes between 9 and 10 hours. So either that means he either got into Warsaw at around 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Then he goes to the airport to catch the flight back to the United States, and it could have been a chartered U.S. aircraft. So let's say the earliest he could have boarded would have been 11 a.m., but more likely 12. Okay, the flight from Warsaw to the United States, regardless of whether you got military aircraft or whatever, is a 10-hour flight because you're flying against headwinds. Anyone that's ever done international travel knows that when you fly from west to east, much quicker, you got the tailwinds behind you. Flying from east to west, slower trip. Okay, what time is it in Washington, D.C. if you leave at 12 noon, and then 10 hours later you get in, that's 10 p.m., right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, but the reports that were put out is that the call to 911 came at 8:30 p.m. But Lindsey Graham wasn't even in the country then. Now, could he have been in the country if he had been flown back on a medical flight? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean he was alive when the flight landed. And maybe they hauled his body over to the house to make it appear. That's how they could have had him, a dead body at the house. And maybe he did suffer a heart attack in Kyiv. That's possible. So I'm not going to speculate on the cause of death. Could have been a heart attack. My only point is, if you're traveling normal, no way in hell would he have been back at his house by then. having a heart attack after suffering an arduous journey. So either the dead body was brought back, planted at the house, or they just made that up, and his body wherever it wound up, the DC morgue. Be curious to see how that's been handled. Anyway, it's just the story put out by the White House is not true.
Yeah. By the way, yesterday he was visiting one of these drone factories in Ukraine, which was later on attacked by Russia and destroyed by Russia, by the way.
Right.
And he was getting back. Yesterday, he said he's going to get back and push for this new resolution of sanction in Russia, more sanctions on Russia. That was the main agenda. He went there to give the support to Zelensky, and coming back, putting more sanctions on Russia. And
well, I guess you can check that off of his to-do list.
Yeah. Donald Trump was so sad today. He talked to CNN, to MSNBC, in all these interviews. He was so sad. He was telling that he didn't want to talk about the Strait of Hormuz. He was asked about the Strait. He said, before coming to this interview, I told you I'm not going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz because we are so sad right now because of the death of Lindsey Graham. And here is what he said, Larry.
How you received this news and your immediate gut reaction when you heard it.
So what makes it even stranger is that I got a call last night sometime at, the early evening, maybe in the 7s, and he called and he said, we're all set for the Save America Act. He was pushing the Save America Act like crazy. He got back, said he just landed from Ukraine. I said, that's a long trip to make. He said, he sounded a little tired, but perfect, but a little bit tired. I had a right to be. And he was a worker. He was really a worker. But he sounded great, actually. But he actually said he was tired. But he wanted to pass the Save America Act. And I said, well, we're going to get it done, Lindsey. We're going to get it done. I'll see you soon. We thought maybe we might even meet today. And then that was it. And that was, very around the time. It couldn't have been much longer. It could have been his last call. I don't know exactly. But I got a message about 1 o'clock in the morning from one of the people at his office that he had passed away. I said, I just can't believe it. He was like a member of the family to me. It's very tough, actually. It's amazing.
Mr. President.
He was such an advocate. He was, if he wanted to get something, and he had a unique ability. He was able to deal with Democrats and Republicans. If I had a problem, a real problem, I wouldn't often ask. But if I had a problem with a Democrat, he could work it out. He was a great politician, actually.
Yeah, you feel how sad Donald Trump is when he's talking about Lindsey Graham. And I have another reaction from Donald Trump after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I want you to comment on that, the way he's reacting to the to Lindsey Graham, to the case of Lindsey Graham, comparing to the way he's reacting to Charlie Kirk. Here is what he said about Charlie Kirk.
How are you holding up over the last 3.5 days? I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks. They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty. It'll be an absolutely magnificent structure. And I just see all the trucks. We just started, so it'll get done very nicely, and it'll be one of the best anywhere in the world, actually.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell he's really broken up over the death of Charlie Kirk. Yeah, he's not. He's not telling the truth about what happened to Lindsey Graham. Because if Lindsey Graham was flying back, that flight, the only way from Graham to get from Poland to Warsaw to fly back was on the train, and then because normally the U.S. military aircraft are not flying into Kyiv. And never, not when Joe Biden went, they didn't fly it. He took the train. When Ursula von der Leyen goes in, she takes the train. All the leaders of NATO, they take the train. Members of Congress, they take the train. But now we're asked to believe that there was some sort of special mission, and they flew in a U.S. aircraft, and it flew him back. Again, what time did the aircraft take off? And why the urgency to get Lindsey back? And then he gets back and suffers a heart attack at home, even though the normal travel route means he would still be on a plane, if that's what happened. So either he was killed in Kyiv, maybe he did get caught in a bombing, or maybe he had a heart attack, hearing the explosions go off. I don't think he's ever been in Kyiv before when there were explosions going off, and maybe that frightened him to death. Who knows? But it's just, the story just doesn't quite add up. If they would have said, "Oh, he had suffered a heart attack at midnight," yeah, okay, maybe he'd gotten off the plane, got home, and through an emboli, from doing that much traveling, sitting, and such over the time frame. But I said the story as it's being told just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Larry, the fight, before getting into the fight, I want to play a clip of Lindsey Graham, because we know how he supported the war in Ukraine. He was one of the main advocates of the support to Ukraine in this war. He said, "We're going to fight you." You remember he went to Ukraine before this war started, before all this madness started, together with McCain. And he said, "We're going to support you. You go along, and we're going to defeat Russia here in Ukraine. You're so brave. You're doing this and that." And the other side of his argument was the case of the West Asia and his support for Israel. And here is what he said in recent interview.
On October the 7th was 1,200 people were slaughtered, raped, and murdered and filmed by radical Islamists who would kill every Jew if they could, to the world. If you don't understand this is a threat to Israel,
and then they flattened Gaza.
Just flatten it. We flattened Berlin. We flattened Tokyo.
Yeah, the reaction of Netanyahu.
Israel has lost one of the great champions of the American-Israeli alliance. And frankly, I've lost a beloved friend.
I was deeply shocked and heartbroken to learn of the sudden passing of a great American patriot, a true friend of Israel, and a dear friend of mine, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it ironic that, he loves Israel so much that he's supporting Nazis in Ukraine? People who carried out massacres, their ancestors. The ideological ancestors of the Banderaites were responsible for the murdering of Jews as well as of Catholic Poles, women and children, elderly men. So there wasn't any intellectual consistency with Lindsey Graham on that.
The reason, Larry, I played both clips, one of them from Lindsey Graham, the other one, Donald Trump's reaction to both, Lindsey Graham and Charlie Kirk, is what we were talking about Donald Trump before Donald Trump being elected as the president of the United States. We were basically arguing that Donald Trump is an outsider. He's going to do this and that. He's going to be different. And the new cabinet is going to be different. The people in the administration, no one from the previous administration is part of the new administration. And all of a sudden you see he's so much close. He's so much, connected with Lindsey Graham more than those people who supported him during the election. Charlie Kirk was, I would say, one of the main factors behind Donald Trump being elected. He made a movement in the United States. TPUSA was so important for the election for Donald Trump. But he just ignored about what was the importance of that. But he's so connected personally to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is a very, in my opinion, important character because he was so close to Democrats and Republicans. That's the importance of Lindsey Graham. He's basically neocon.
Well, you're correct. He is a character, or was a character. I think there's a hot place in the afterlife that he's he's able to work on a suntan now. But this is I don't understand Donald Trump's loyalty to Graham, given all the terrible things that Graham has said and done. Graham didn't lift a damn finger to investigate Russiagate when the Republicans had control of the Senate. He's almost like he was an inside operative working against Trump, and yet Trump stupidly, kept playing golf with Lindsey and kept close ties to Lindsey. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But you're right. He was the consummate neocon. So the good news is one less neocon to run around making trouble.
I think Ted Cruz is going to replace him right now because no one is close to Lindsey Graham than other than Ted Cruz. He's going to be in his place to support Israel, to support the war in Ukraine. Let's see. Larry, the war is happening between Iran again and the United States. The new waves of attacks are happening as we talk.
Yep.
And there are reports from the Iranians from the southern part of Iran, as I mentioned, in the city of Bandar Abbas. There is a new footage coming out. And in a moment, I'm going to show a photo of that explosion in Bandar Abbas. But today, there was another attack close to the nuclear power plant in Bushehr, which was so close. They hit some targets so close to the nuclear power plant. Here is the footage. As you see here, let me just look at here. It gets so close to the nuclear power plant. Later on, we've learned that it wasn't the nuclear power plant didn't damage because of this attack, which was so close, and it's operational. Mm-hmm. So the other reports from Iran was the Iranian attack on Jordan in Prince Hassan Air Base in Jordan. There is this footage and 2 points here. You see the larger circle, it shows the command and control in the Prince Hassan Air Base, and the little one is a runway in that air base, which is important. Mm-hmm. You were asking why is Iran not attacking the runway? It shows, they did that in Jordan. And the other report that came out later on, it was the attack on the shelters, one of the shelters of these drones in the same airbase in Jordan. You see in this picture, it shows how it was destroyed. I don't know how many drones were located at the time that this missile hits the target. So the two sides are basically fighting and escalating the fight. They're hitting the targets. There were some reports that American forces were hit by Iranian missiles because they were using, in the initial hours last night of the attack, they were using HIMARS in Bahrain and Kuwait and hitting the targets in the Iranian southern part of Iran. Then you see the Iranian response. And here is one of the points that was attacked. And it's at the border between Kuwait and Iraq. And here is the location of this attack. You see Kuwait at the border with Iraq, and you see that city called Abadan. That is the city of Iran, one of the cities in the southwest of Iran. It's so close for Iranians to monitor what's going on on that border. So they hit that target. It says it was a UN base or somehow some place belonged to UN, which was attacked. Americans were using those HIMARS in that area. Go ahead, your understanding of what is happening so far.
Well, so now Iran has targeted 2 separate bases in Jordan, the Muwafiq al-Salti base and now the King Hassan base. So those are the 2 bases where U.S. Forces have been located, and Iran's hitting them. They hit the naval repair or the naval facility in Oman. Now, again, Iran's had pretty good relations with Oman, but they're sending Oman a message. You're going to make a choice. You're going to stand with the Americans, you're going to stand with us. If you stand with the Americans, we're going to destroy your facilities that are helping the Americans. They've also hit Al Udeid Air Force Base. Then they've hit the targets in Kuwait and Bahrain. So, they also hit Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. So, and my understanding is right now, even though the U.S. is continuing its bombing, Iran is not waiting. They're already launching missiles in retaliation. So we'll see if this is the last round of escalation. If we go on past patterns, we get this spike of violence Saturday or Sunday, and then somewhere between Sunday evening or into early Monday morning, like 7:30, Trump makes some sort of announcement about, one thing he could say tomorrow is, Iran is screaming for, the effectiveness of our airstrikes, let Iran come seek peace, and so we're gonna be going back to the negotiating table. He would do that before the market opens. If he doesn't do that before the market opens, one, it's going to spike the price of oil, and it's going to tank the stock market. So in the past, Trump has clearly been involved with the manipulation of the stock market and the oil market. So if he doesn't make that announcement, in the next 12 to 13 hours, then I think we're going to continue to see this escalation grow. And the United States is expending HIMARS and ATACMS missiles that they don't have. I mean, they're depleting the inventories. So that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. And here is the Strait of Hormuz right now. And I have seen no changes in the strait since this morning.
Is that marinetraffic.com?
Marine traffic, marinetraffic.com.
Okay. Do you see that big red ship that's right there in the middle, up towards Keshem Island?
Here, this one.
Yeah. What does that say? Jersey Devil, a U.S. flagged pleasure cruise. So, and then see that smaller red dot down below?
Yeah.
Down below. Up. There. Go back down. Right there. That's another U.S. quote pleasure craft. That tells me that those civilian craft are most likely being used to collect intelligence. And I think at some point Iran's going to wake up, realize that, and take them out.
Wow. Yeah.
There's no reason for that. That pleasure craft, Jersey Devil, it's just been selling in a circle down there for more than a week. I've been watching it. I'd be shocked if it's not being used for intel collection.
Iranian Foreign Ministry went to the day before the attack happening last night. We know that he went to Oman. I don't know what was the communication between Iran. I thought that they're going to talk about the new, the Strait of Hormuz, the new mechanism in the Strait of Hormuz, not about attacking Oman, because it was somehow a surprise for me that Iran attacked Oman, and they didn't do it during the war.
Right.
And right now, Iranian Foreign Ministry moments ago said, we have unfortunately reached a stage where there are not just U.S. bases inside neighboring countries, but in fact, some countries have been turned into a U.S. base in their entirety. And he mentioned the Arab microstates should immediately stop letting their territory be used by the United States military or face the severe consequences. And it seems that there is no limit right now for Iranians. Before it was all about Oman. Last night we haven't any sort of attack on the part of Iranians on Saudi Arabia.
Mhm.
Does that mean that Saudi Arabia was not, has the United States didn't use Saudi Arabia in this attack?
Well, apparently not. You know, I think Iran's been pretty specific about not attacking Gulf countries that are not involved with supporting U.S. military operations. They are going after those military facilities that are involved in those countries that are supporting the attacks on Iran. So you know they've been pretty straightforward about that.
Yeah. Here is the photo from Bandar Abbas just moments ago. You see that that smoke, that plume of smoke there. It says that they hit some targets in Bandar Abbas. And the other, Larry, how these forces that are, it seems that the United States is still keeping their forces in Kuwait and Bahrain, because these HIMARS, and they have to use American forces to use those HIMARS, because these are sophisticated weapons. It's not easy for these countries to use them.
I think so. I don't know that for a fact, so I'm not going to speculate on that. But they could have trained the locals. That's a possibility too. But you know, those are targets that Iran will continue to go after. So anybody who's in the vicinity will be at risk. And what we saw, you know, the first 3 days ago when this started, in the U.S. hit, Iran then waited before it responded. It's like